Hello and welcome to the Beardicus Show. My name is Beardicus and today I'll be talking about Yooka-Laylee. Now before I talk about the game, here's a little history lesson. Pay attention, this is going to be on the quiz. Back in the 90s, there was a subgenre of 3D platformer games often referred to as a collect-a-thon. These games, as the name implies, required you to, well, collect things, and one of the best examples of this genre is a game called Banjo-Kazooie and its sequel Banjo-Tooie, released for the Nintendo 64 in 1998 and 2000 respectively. The games were made by a British video game company called Rare. But after that, something happened and collect-a-thons kind of fell out of style, and as a result, we never got a third Banjo game. Now, that one doesn't count and you know it. I was a huge fan of Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, so I was always disappointed that we never got a true sequel and seemingly never will. So when a bunch of former Rare employees came together to form a new company, Playtonic Games, and they announced a Kickstarter campaign for a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie, you better believe that I donated money the moment that campaign went live. And I wasn't the only one. That campaign hit its goal in only 38 minutes. And in case it wasn't obvious, that campaign was for the game Yooka-Laylee, which is why I brought it up. I mean, if it was some other game, it wouldn't really fit in today's episode, so I'm sure everybody already knew what I was building up to, right? Anyway, so the game came out a few weeks ago, I played it, here are my thoughts. This is a collect-a-thon game, meaning the point of this game is to collect things. Specifically jiggies, I mean pages. I will never stop doing that. Pages are these golden pieces of paper. In other words, they're pages, hence the name. They're used to open new worlds, which allows you to collect even more pages. There are 145 pages in total, but only 100 are needed to beat the game. But if that's not enough collectibles for you, don't worry, that's only the beginning. There are also 1,010 quills, 6 health and power extenders, 5 molecules and play coins, and 25 ghost riders, 5 of which are hidden in each of the 5 levels. As well as a secret collectible. You'll have to look extra hard for that one. The story begins with the evil CEO of Ivory Towers stealing a very important book from Yooka-Laylee. Unfortunately for the bumbling bee, the pages within the book escaped, and without the pages, the book is useless. Now it's up to Yooka-Laylee to set out, find all of the missing pages, and recover their book. The story's not super in-depth, but it really doesn't need to be. The main appeal of the writing doesn't come from the story, it actually comes from the humorous dialogue with a colorful cast of characters. From this skeletal adventurer to some sort of animate shopping cart? No, I'm not talking about Kartos, I mean an actual shopping cart. Although Kartos is also a character, I didn't mean to just dismiss him like that. In fact, Kartos is only one of a few recurring characters who appear multiple times throughout the game. Another of these characters is Dr. Puzz, this octopus, I think? Is she an octopus? Maybe she's a squid. Wait, she has 5 face tentacles and 6 limbs, that's 11 tentacles, that's too many tentacles. Huh. Well, whatever she is, she's in every level and is this game's equivalent to Mumbo Jumbo from Banjo-Kazooie. In each level, she will transform Yooka-Laylee into a new, level-specific form that will help you get a pagey. Unfortunately, that's about it. The transformations are really only good for getting 1, maybe 2 pages each, which I think is a missed opportunity. Having each transformation limited to a single mission really limits how much we use the transformation, so it ends up feeling like it was just tacked on for the sake of it as opposed to actually being a fun mechanic. Personally, I would prefer if this game only had 1 transformation that got you 5 pages, as opposed to 5 transformations that each get you 1 pagey. If at the very least the transformations had some other benefit aside from allowing me to complete a specific mission, then that would work too. That would make it an interesting mechanic. Like how the helicopter transformation allows me to fly around freely to better explore the level. That's fine, this is a fun transformation, even ignoring the collectibles, it's just fun to fly around. But then you have transformations like the flower, where the whole point is to do 1 single mission. It doesn't allow you to access new areas, it's not better at fighting, and it's no faster than Yooka is normally. In fact, it might be slower. The only advantage is that these racist flowers will only talk to you if you're also a flower. So I have to ask, what's the point? What makes its transformation compelling? I'm just a flower. The fact that these flowers won't talk to me normally isn't fun, it's just inconvenient. This mission shouldn't require that I be a flower. You could have just as easily had the solution be to water the plants, so what's the point of the transformation? Just to force me to go like 10 feet out of my way to get this one pagey? I feel like most of these forms really could have done with some extra fleshing out. But Dr. Puzz isn't the only character who appears to offer challenges in every level. There's also this friendly fella, Rextro64us. Rextro, as you may have noticed, is designed to look like he came straight out of a game from the Nintendo 64 era. And fitting for a character with such a retro design, his challenges revolve around playing these giant arcade cabinets. If you bring him the hidden play coin in a level, it will allow you to play a little minigame. No, that's not the right word. It will allow you to play a little mini-lame. Yes, that's the word, because even the best of these mini-lames is only okay. There's one mini-lame in each of the 5 worlds and 2 pages associated with each one. You get the first pagey for beating the mini-lame and the second for getting the high score. These lames aren't hard, they're barely even challenging, but they are needlessly long and can get pretty tedious. Which is made worse by the fact you can't get both pages in one go. In other words, despite how easy it is to beat the high score in one try, you have to play each mini-lame twice. At the very least, of the 8 mini-lames, 3 of them are only available in the arcade, so even a completionist doesn't actually need to play those. And if you think I'm exaggerating how poorly designed these mini-lames are, here's an actual clip of me beating one of them. You can beat this mini-lame and get the pagey by doing literally nothing. I do want to clarify something though. I'm only talking about the missions here, not the characters. Dr. Puzz is a funny character, as long as you don't mind the incessant puns whenever you talk to her. And Rextro64us is actually one of my favorite characters, even if he does have terrible taste in games. And if you think it's only the good NPCs who are varied, you'd be kinda right. Most of the different types of enemies can be found in every world, so you'll be fighting the same enemies in the first and the final worlds. Though the main corporate enemies do have 6 different forms that they can show up as depending on which world you're in. But of course the change is purely cosmetic, they don't act any differently. And there aren't even any enemies specific to a world like you'd see in most other games. It's not a huge deal, but I think it would have been really cool if you were fighting aliens in the space world or alligators in the swamp or something, but instead you're still just fighting bees and googly eyes. Oh, speaking of which, the googly eyes are probably my favorite enemies in the game. It's such a cool concept. It fits perfectly with Platonic's character design philosophy of taking something and sticking googly eyes on it. And it only bothers me a little bit when they completely ignore my attacks or bug out or whatever is happening here. Anyway, the enemies may not be super varied, but the bosses certainly are. There's one boss per world and each one has a unique design and attack pattern, as well as a unique way to fight them. Most of them were fun to fight. The only exception was this giant Xbox Kinect here. He's the only boss I actively disliked fighting. I mean, I like the idea of fighting a boss in a minecart mission like this, but I just felt the fight dragged on way too long. Okay, I've spent a lot of time talking about the characters, and I've only briefly mentioned some of the levels, so let's shift our focus over to that. First and foremost, there are 5 worlds in this game, each one with a unique theme. The jungle world, the ice world, the swamp world, the casino world, and the space world. My personal favorite world is Capital Casino because it's got this unique mechanic where you aren't actually helping people in exchange for pages directly, but instead for these casino tokens, which you then have to trade to this completely non-suspicious banker who totally isn't Capital B. Each of these worlds feels very distinct from one another, which is very nice to see, and while at first the levels don't seem particularly large, that's because when you initially open a world, it'll only be a fraction of the full size. In order to access the full world, you have to return to the entrance and throw a few extra pages into it. This will expand the world slightly, or massively, depending on which world it is. And I really like this mechanic. It gives you the option of whether you'd like to take a quick look through each world, or if you'd like to invest more time and pages into one world at a time, looking for every page you can possibly get your hands on. The only problem is that there's really no incentive to expand the worlds right away. You only gain access to new moves by opening new worlds. And while expanding a world will give you access to a few extra pages, many of them won't be immediately collectible until you get those moves from later levels. So I found myself opening each level as soon as I could to get all of the moves as quickly as possible, and only then did I return to thoroughly explore the previous levels. Again, not a huge problem, but I feel it would have worked better if there was a more immediate advantage to expanding a world. Maybe if expanding a world gave you like a 50% off discount on that world's moves, then perhaps it would have worked better. You'll also realize pretty quickly that within these levels, most of the pages are found within cages. By the way, Platonic, if you're watching, I'd like to file a formal complaint. Why don't cages have eyes? Look, I'll let it slide this time, but in Yooka-Laylee 2, I expect to see cages with googly eyes. Anyway, most pages are found within cages. To save the pages, you must solve the puzzles. Okay, that one was a stretch, I'll stop. These puzzles usually involve figuratively jumping through hoops to complete tasks, which sometimes means literally jumping through hoops. The missions in this game aren't particularly difficult. At least not until you've found all but just a few quills in a level and you have to go back and double check every square inch of the entire level to find those last few quills that you missed. Unless you're not completing the game, I guess, in which case that won't be a problem. Casual. Though if you are completing the game, there's good news. See this refrigerator lady? Well, she's actually a vending machine. Her role in the game is to provide you with something called a tonic that you can use to influence the way you play the game. A play tonic, if you will. She offers 16 of these tonics, well, 15, the 16th one isn't ready yet. These tonics offer a wide range of effects from giving you additional health to, well, giving you limited health for more of a challenge. But my favorite tonic, one that was invaluable to completing this game, was this one, the Hunter tonic. This tonic causes rare collectibles like the health and power extenders to whistle out to you when you're near them. But best of all, once you've gotten most of the quills in a world, the remaining ones will begin whistling out to you as well, which makes finding all 200 of them much, much easier. And speaking of quills, those quills that are scattered all over the place are used to buy new powers from that shady serpent salesman himself, Trouser. Unlike, say, Banjo-Kazooie, where most moves had their own collectible associated with them that allowed you to use the move, like how red feathers allowed you to fly, this game forgoes that by having all of the moves draw from one communal power bar. When the power bar is empty, obviously you can't use moves that require power bar power anymore. The power will refill on its own after a few seconds, or if you need it to refill faster, you can just grab a butterfly. But before you do that, consider that butterflies refill both health and power, but not at the same time. You can either eat a butterfly for more health, or simply grab it to refill your power. The thing is, since power refills by itself, there is not much of a point of grabbing butterflies instead of eating them unless you're in the middle of a mission that requires extensive and continuous use of power draining abilities. The change to power bar based moves is, in and of itself, not a problem, but it'll become very important shortly, so keep it in mind. If you remember, a little while ago I mentioned that I was disappointed that the Dr. Puzz transformations were underutilized because they generally help you get one pagey and that's it. Well, I'm gonna be honest here and say that going into the game I was afraid the moves would work the same way. I'm pleased to say that this is not the case. Moves you learn from the first world are still useful into the late game and even the final boss. For the most part. There are two moves that I have a problem with. The first one is Camo Cloak, which turns you invisible for a short amount of time. A very short amount of time. The limited amount of time you can use this move substantially limits how often you can use it effectively. In my experience, it's really only useful for missions that specifically require it. And even beyond that, it's just not particularly useful. I mean, yeah, you can use it to sneak past a group of enemies, or you could just not use it and run past those same enemies. On the other hand, you have the single most useful move ever, Flappy Flight. In the late game, or the mid game depending on how quickly you open new worlds, you gain the ability to fly, and it is broken. It is so broken. Look at how long you can stay in the air. It uses up like no power, and even so, power recharges so quickly that it doesn't even matter. You land for a second and you're good to fly again. You can fly everywhere. The world is your oyster. Except for when invisible walls get in the way. Like, Platonic, you couldn't put actual walls here? Like, you gave me the ability to fly, and what, you expected me not to abuse it? Seriously though, this movie is completely broken. Watch me fight the first boss without flying. That's pathetic, right? Now watch me fight him with flying. That's pathetic, right? Except this time, the boss was the pathetic one. Again, it's not a huge problem because it is one of the later powers, but it kind of feels like Platonic forgot to balance out the whole, being able to fly in a platforming game. The worst part about this move is how redundant it makes all of the other moves. The grappling hook? Worthless. You can just fly across the gaps. The roll? Worthless. You can just fly up the ramp. The ground pound? Well, actually that one's unaffected, but the point remains. And I think there's just one last thing to note before I start wrapping this up. The music. It's amazing. Especially the Ivory Towers music. I don't think there's been a single moment since I first turned the game on that tune has not been stuck in my head. 3D platformers, especially the collectathon variety, have always been my favorite type of game. As a completionist, I find myself drawn to games with an abundance of objectives like this, so when the game was first announced, I got super excited. That being said, obviously the game has flaws, but I thoroughly enjoyed my experience with the game, and I think you will too. So, I recommend the game. Especially if you're a fan of platformers, especially if you're a fan of Banjo-Kazooie. But don't expect it to be perfect, because it's not. But that's just my opinion. Well, this has been the Beardicus Show. My name is Beardicus. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye. Hey, if you like that video and you want to be notified when my next video is up, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Or you can check out my gameplay channel where I'm playing through Yooka-Laylee right now! Maybe, depending on when you watch this video. Anyway, that's it from me, so have a nice day. Or don't. Don't let me tell you what to do. Goodbye.